Well, hey there, YouTube. Man, I wanted to make just a brief video dealing with something maybe some of you have, which is brachialis pain. If you're not familiar with the brachialis, but you're like, man, I just know that there's a lot of pain in my lower bicep when I'm doing any kind of bicep workouts. Sometimes that's going to be related to that brachialis muscle, right? And so that's the muscle that runs right through here underneath the bicep, right? And I have been dealing with this now for about 5 months. I mean, real substantial pain in this particular area. And so probably like a lot of you, I went to YouTube to go, man, what are some solutions for this? Because I tried to rest it for about 5 weeks. It didn't seem to ease up in any way. And so then I went looking and I've tried icing it. I have consumed copious amounts of fish oil. I've done low weight, high rep, slow movement kind of things. Tried massaging it deep. I mean, all these different things that I could find because there wasn't a ton out there that I was even finding on YouTube or out there on Google or whatever else to deal with this. And so, again, went for a long time. And in my case, what was interesting is I could do the same amount of weight that I was doing, but it was just excruciating, right? So as soon as I tried to do a hammer curl with 10 pounds, it was just terribly painful. You know, I go to 20, it was terrible. I would jump up to 30, 35, 40 pounds, and I could pull it off, but it was just tremendously awful when it came to the pain involved, right? And so tried a lot of different things for a while and finally decided, you know what, I'm going to go see a sports medicine doctor because I don't know what else to do. And that's why I'm making this video, because his advice was different than what I had found online. And I can already let you know that in 3 weeks of doing it, I have felt a tremendous alleviation of pain and new movement toward getting healthy again. So basically what it was is his advice, his thoughtfulness, and by the way, this guy's about 59, 60 years old, not only as a doctor, but also as a weightlifter. So again, he's pretty familiar with the gym and that kind of thing. He asked me about my routine, what I was doing. And he's like, man, you got plenty of recovery time. You've got a solid diet attached to this and everything else. He goes, this is just what happens when guys get into our age bracket, that our tendons don't love to put that kind of strain on them that we used to be able to put on in our 20s and 30s. And so he said, here's the deal. Because I said, I just kept working out because I tried resting and it didn't help. And he goes, you're right. Resting this will not heal it. He goes, a lot of doctors will tell you just to rest it, put it in a sling, take the pressure off for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. He goes, and it's going to be just as problematic when you're done. It's not going to heal it from doing that. So he says, you're working out, keep doing that. That was smart. But he goes, you have to remove all of your isolation movement when it comes to working your biceps. He says, instead, you got to shift into pure compound movements. And his reason for this was pretty simple, and I thought it was intelligent. He says the body, when it takes in nutrients and then begins to kind of displace them through the body, it has a descending order of priority based on need, right? So the brain needs a lot, the organs need a lot, muscles are going to need a lot, things like that. He goes, but bones and tendons are kind of low maintenance components to the body, and therefore the body isn't necessarily going, oh, there's a problem with the tendon, we got to really focus on seeing that heal, deal with the inflammation, and kind of accordingly see repair, right? He goes, that doesn't typically happen unless you're creating enough attention for the body to say, hey, we got to address it, but not so much pressure that you're continuing to exacerbate the problem. So he says, based on that, compound movements are going to get the attention without continuing to do the damage. Where just resting it doesn't give the attention. Just continuing isolation movements are going to put too much undue stress. You got to thread the needle and find that perfect spot. Compound movements are going to do it. Now, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I have this tube here I can use for this. All isolation movements are going to be typically what we do to work our biceps, right? So it's going to be your curls, whether it be a barbell curl or a dumbbell curl, anything like that, right? And he says you've got to remove that because, again, that puts too much pressure on that lower tendon, because for me, I have brachial tendinopathy is what he called it. So the tendons are unhappy in my brachialis muscle there, right? So that's what we're having to address. And he goes, but the bicep is bi for a reason, right? And so from that, you want to use movements that utilize both the shoulder and the elbow in the movement. So compound movements are not going to be this. This is isolation. Compounds are going to be things like chin-ups, right? Where you're using both joints in the movement, or rows, right? Or maybe kind of rows that are bent over this way. Those are going to be some of the things that you can utilize in this. Or pull downs is another one, right? On the rack where you're just doing pull downs. The challenge in this is that there's not a lot of compound exercises you can do, right? So there's a lot of variations that are isolated movements, not a ton that are compound movements. And so you feel like, man, am I really doing anything? The reason I'm making this is because after 3 weeks, just 3 weeks of doing this, after 5 months of trying everything I knew how, I can tell you that I have already, on the outside of my arm where I had a ton of pain, like I'd push down in here and I just couldn't do it. I would say the pain on this side has been alleviated probably about 70 to 80%. It's almost gone, right? And then the inside, I would say that's been decreased by maybe 40 to 50%, and that's just in 3 weeks, right? So now if I extend my arm all the way, there's some tenderness right in here, especially when I press right in here, but on the outside where I was really struggling with the two, it's been massively minimized, right? And so, I don't know how long this is going to necessarily take, but after 5 months of trying everything else, icing myself twice a day, and just all that craziness, working the racquetball on the arm every time I go to the gym, it's relieving to know that there may be an end in sight. And it all comes back to that compound movement stuff. And so I just work through a process where I do a certain amount of chin-ups, and then I move over to the pull-down bar, and then I go ahead and do rows that are, not overhand rows, underhand rows, all of that. So all of that combined is really kind of giving that attention that I needed to see this healing go on. And so, again, I don't know if this is going to work for you. But again, the advice he gave me was not something that I would have figured out on my own. And so I thought, I'm just going to pass it along. Maybe you're having great success with icing it and fish oil and a racquetball and, the kind of the high rep, low weight kind of thing. I hope you are. I hope that worked for you. It just wasn't working for me. And I finally was just getting frustrated. Like, is this going to be the way it is for the rest of my life? Or am I going to be able to move toward kind of getting healed up again? And so when I heard this and tried it out, and again, in that whole time, I haven't been icing it. I've minimized my fish oil to like 3 pills a day, where I was doing like 15 to 20 a day. I've pulled all that out. I put the racquetball away, and it's finally beginning to help, right? I found that I have to kind of trust the system, and it doesn't seem like I'm seeing a lot of atrophy even from limiting those compound movements. It doesn't seem like I'm getting cheated in that sense. I try to go really hard on the select movements that I can do, but it seems like, again, strength is staying pretty solid and that kind of thing. And so, again, it's a great movement toward healing and ultimately getting back to some of the things I want to do. Though he warned me, he says, listen, again, guys at our age, which our age is 45 and above, he's like, the tendons don't love this, and so you may want to stick with compound movements moving forward. I think when I'm completely healed up, I'll bring back in like preacher curls and maybe a couple other little things. But I think I'm going to try to lean more on the compound movements because I can see the advantage in that, especially as I'm getting a little older and the tendons don't love the pressure as much. So again, I hope this helps you out in some way. I'm not claiming it's the fix-all for everybody, but I rarely do these videos unless it's something where I go, man, this really helped. I hope this helps you. And so, again, maybe you'll utilize it, and after series of weeks, for me, it's been 3. I'm hoping that by 6 weeks, I'll be feeling pretty good, maybe 90, 95% across the arm there, that kind of thing. And maybe, within a couple of months, it'll be back to good old as usual, and I can get back to some of the things I wanted to do. But hopefully this helps you out. Let me know if it does. Or if you know of other little tricks of the trade in this, that's awesome. I just happened to get this bit of information, and it was pretty transforming, and so I thought I'd pass it on to you. So you guys have an awesome day. Hit the gym hard, and hope you're feeling better. All right, thanks.